All right. Okay, I'm testing out the streaming right now. Let me know if you guys can hear me because we are live with the weekly wrangle. So, the agenda for today is to go through various artworks that were made in Houdini, offer some constructive critique, things that are working well, not well. I'll be honest with you guys, I actually haven't even looked very closely at a lot of these artworks today. So I'm going to be experiencing these renders in real time with you guys. In addition to that, it's all live, so feel free to add in questions, say hello, whatever you feel like. It's just kind of a cool open platform for us to hang out. All right, I'm going to switch over my screen now to the first artwork here, and that is the Bergen Landscape. This was done by, where is it? Knee? Knee 1119. Let's check it out. All right, so Bergen Landscape. I'm going to zoom in here a little bit, and naturally, the first thing you do whenever you want to start getting picky is you zoom in real close and you start tearing it apart. Actually, I'm going to take the opposite route here. Let's zoom out and look at this from a distance. Overall, what are some of the impressions? Well, one thing I do like, one of the first things I look at when I have a landscape is, does it feel like it goes back a far distance? We have this little haze back there, and the answer is yes, it does feel like it goes back in the distance. This whole back plate area feels pretty realistic because it looks like something that's off in the distance, like you would normally see it. So that's pretty cool. Compositionally, it is kind of interesting if you try to look at this by squinting your eyes. So try to kind of blur out your eyesight and kind of go like that. What shapes does it make? And that gives you an idea of your composition. So right now our composition is kind of a little bit above center right here, and then we just have this big old shape like that. So that's interesting to note. Usually with landscape photography, you want to follow the rule of thirds. That's the quote unquote rule, right? So you would pick 1/3 of the way down your frame, and that's where you would put your horizon line. So this does probably need to go up a little bit if you want to follow that rule, or you can break it. You know, rules are meant to be broken, are they not? So that's something to notice here. I do think, though, that bringing this up would be good. We are also seeing a little bit of this awkwardness at the top right. You never want to leave just like a little bit of something, just like a little sliver of color like that. You might as well just bring it down so that that part of the composition is covered. But yeah, I guess getting picky with the composition a little bit, I would bring it up. That would fix this little guy. It would bring it more towards that thirds, and that would be cool. Now let's zoom in. Go in a little bit here, and we'll talk about the water. I think the water right now feels repetitive and not in a good way. Like this feels like a very CGI repetitive kind of thing. The shapes are, pretty identical, and I understand that water does do that. But what would take this up a notch is if you just had little patches that break up these repetitive patterns. You can have two versions of the water here, and all you would need to do with the displacement, or however this is made, is you would just have one section, like let's say right here in the middle, that would have it maybe be a little bit more calm and flat, or just something to break up the pattern so it's not the same thing. And then you could use a noise to blend two versions of this thing on top of each other. In Houdini, the Ocean Toolkit has something like that for the large oceans. You create little patches of different sections that have different shapes, and it breaks up that repetition. That right there, I think, would take this up a notch. But again, looking at this from a distance, it seems pretty cool. It looks like we are getting a little bit fuzzy on this mask up here as well. And it's very difficult to fix that. But sometimes when you try to comp something in or something like that, and you get these fuzzy borders through Photoshop or whatever it is, it's tempting to make it fuzzy, but then you lose out on the sharpness and then it doesn't look realistic. So I would, it's really just up, I would say in this top corner, like this area. It's a lot better over here. It's a lot sharper. But if this was as sharp as it was up here, it might feel less fake, I guess. So, again, just some constructive critique. I do like the concept of having these, houses up here in the hills. It would be cool to see it kind of go more diagonal too. One thing that you can do compositionally to make your compositions go back more is you can have a line that kind of goes diagonal. I mean, you can even see in my little picture frame, as I go like this with my hand, you can just see that there's more depth, and there's more perceived depth because of camera distortion. So it actually will take the edges of your frame, distort it a little bit, and sometimes when you get that diagonal movement, it makes it feel like you're reaching back in the frame more. So that could be one idea too, to make this even cooler. But yeah, anyway, this is really cool. Great job there, Bergen. Or not Bergen. Great job, Nee. I dig it. I think it's cool. What up, Sam Savage? Thanks for stopping by. All right, next up here, we have The Flying Machine by Fiorada, and I don't know how to say that last name. Ken John and Kumpens. This looks cool already. Let's check it out. All right, so play it forward here. Yeah. Again, first time seeing this with you guys here. Cool. This is a cool little test for animation right here. So this is procedural animation inspired by Ken Dryam Flying Machine Automata. All aspects are done in Houdini. Let's check it out one more time. First of all, I like the fact that you start without any focus and you kind of focus in. Excuse me. I think one thing that can make that even better is if you took the camera and you just pan the camera a little bit. Just a tiny little camera pan would make that even better. Or you just have it maybe swivel around it so it takes like a round arc around that subject. It just makes it feel more cinematic. And that's why I like this focus blur going into focus. The reason why I like it is because it feels more entertaining. It's more cinematic. It's more of a, what is this thing? I don't know. Oh, there it is. Right? It sounds kind of ridiculous, but having some narrative arcs or having this experience evolve over time makes things entertaining. And that's why it works. Anyway, just want to throw that out there. I love these little gears here. I'm guessing maybe this is a IK rig or something going on, which is really cool. I could be wrong about that. But yeah, in terms of like the tech and the simulation components of this, I think it's really cool. It's definitely working, which is an achievement in itself, right? These little hinges here could be a fun noise going back and forth. It sounds like this is also synced up to some kind of music. Let's see if there's some sound. Oh, no, there's not. Well, that would be a cool thing. If you want to take this up a notch, have this procedural animation and then have that go in rhythm with some kind of music. It would be a challenging thing to do. You would have to figure out the right tempo, maybe find some information that you bring in through chops or something of that sort. I don't know how you would do it exactly, but for a bonus technical challenge, that would be cool to sync this up with some audio. Anyway, really cool. I think it could use some better shading. I do like the fact that we have this backdrop and we have these little planet-looking things or these little light orbs. I think that's a very interesting thing. I also love this. It just feels very creative and interesting. I would say, though, that again, the shading on some of these parts needs some help. This is good shading down here with that wood. I would just like to see that level of detail in this little spindle thing, whatever that is, and on the metal as well. Because this is close up, you can take a displacement of metal and you can just, put it on there, make sure you have the scale right, and that would go a really long way in breaking up those highlights. With metal, you don't really need much. You can even just have a little bump map, and that would be enough to break up some of these highlights, especially in areas like this, and make a pretty huge difference on the quality. There was some rendering artifacts and some weird depth of field things happening here, it looks like. So I don't know what's happening there. I would take a look at that. I think I saw some flickering. Yeah, we'll go back here. There's some flickering happening right around here. And again, I'm not sure exactly what that is. It looks like a depth of field thing, or maybe like a motion or like a depth of field in comp kind of thing. Not sure exactly, but I would look into that as far as areas to improve. I would focus on texturing, camera movements, and if you want a bonus technical challenge, syncing this up to music. All of those would take it up a notch even better. So, thanks for sharing there, Firada. And sorry if I mispronounced your name, but it looks really cool. All right, what's up, Pizzola? Thanks for joining. Appreciate it. All right, this one here is by Alessio Garkai. It's called The Walkers. Let's check it out. Nice. It's a cool concept. He's got, is that people on him walking as well? That's kind of trippy. Let's check it out again here. Yeah, let me pause that. Looks like legs or something. What is that? Here, let's see if we can zoom in, or there we go. There's a clear picture. It's like a tube with gold on the end or something. Huh. Yeah, trippy. All right, so this is a abstract piece. One of the first things I'll say I do like a lot is the lighting. We actually have textures on our lights here. It's incredible. That's what gives this dappled light effect. And by the way, if you're watching and you're a Houdini artist that does not use textures on your lights, make sure you do so. It makes a massive difference to the quality of your end render. All these bright areas, dark areas, it really goes a long way to making something automatically feel like it's a higher caliber. And it's so easy to do. You just load in a texture map. You just have to care and know about it pretty much. So, yeah, that's great. I think looking at this some more, let's keep going a little bit. So, one of the things that I can pick on, just because I'm a Houdini artist and I know how difficult this might be, is that we do have these strands here glitching out. So this is like they call it like a plexus effect, where you basically have these points and it finds the nearest point and it just draws a line. And then you can mesh that line, and then that could be, I think, how this is being generated. But the problem with the plexus effect is that it looks really jittery and it doesn't feel smooth, right? So what would be more difficult is to do this kind of thing without the jitters and to try to make it feel as if these are vellum strings that attach to the character, and rather than glitching out, they just stretch and they kind of move with it. I think that would take this up a notch from a effects perspective. So I guess the hard thing would be to get this to not tangle up. Maybe if you were clever, you can attach some of these wires on the back side of the character so you don't see it going through the mesh. Maybe that could be a solution there. But I just picture in my head having a rubber band or a string that's elastic attached to the character, and then right where it's attached, it's able to just kind of swivel naturally. So it doesn't, it doesn't care about rotation. It just cares about the location. So you could do a vellum string for that, and that would not have the rotation data to mess it up. Just thinking off the top of my head here. But that's one thing I think that would take this up a notch even further, which is really cool. Yeah, and then last but not least, I'm intrigued by this abstract gold white tube thing, but at the same time I don't know what it is, and I don't know if it's really appealing to me. Like, if it was me and I was doing this, I would switch it out for something else, or I would maybe try to make some more shapes out of it or groom it in a certain way so it has patterns. We have detail that's on a small to mid size here, but it's not detail in a large way where like you can't really tell large shapes out of this. And I guess perhaps for that reason it feels somewhat incomplete. And again, I think this also goes back to shading. This feels very CGI. Anytime you have solid colors like this and highlights aren't broken up, boom, CGI. Even if something's in the real world, if that ever happened, it would look CGI. So just paying more close attention to the shading, perhaps to the large shapes, the large details that you want to express. And in anything you guys do, large, medium, and small, make sure that everything has those details going on. And that will make something feel more complete and like it's totally good to go. Anyway, great job here, Alessio. Really cool abstract piece there. Yeah, it does kind of look like a headphone jack. I agree. So yeah, Pizzola, you asked, is this a weekly challenge? It's not a weekly challenge. I literally just go online to Side Effects' website and I go to their little gallery, and then I go to Twitter or X, whatever, and I do hashtag Houdini and I pick stuff out at random. The idea with the weekly wrangle here is to offer constructive critique so that we can all figure out what we like and what we don't like about things, and then as artists try to incorporate those ideas into our own work. One thing that I experienced when I was going to college for fine arts way back when that was happening is art critiques and art history. And this is essentially like half of what I would do all day. And it actually added up and I think made a pretty big difference for me as an artist. Breaking things down, figuring out what works, what doesn't work, trying to understand where the artist is coming from, get in their head. And then when I sit down and I do my own artwork, I'm thinking about the same things. So it's kind of a practice in how you think as you're making something. And I find that makes a massive difference the more and more you practice this and the more and more you do it. So that's the idea here with the weekly wrangle, or at least with the art reviews. I used to do more of a news-based, flair of this, and sometimes I might throw in some news. I will actually give you some updates here soon. But anyway, that's the whole idea. And yeah, but great question. Okay, so we have a few more here. I'm going somewhat slowly through all this stuff. Before we do, actually, I think this is a good time to talk about some announcements. Houdini 20 will be releasing fairly soon. I believe in the keynote, if you haven't seen. That is scheduled for sometime this month. So that's very exciting. With the release of Houdini 20, I'm going to completely revamp my beginner series. It needs an update. It needs to be taken up a couple notches. And so I already got done recording Houdini for the New Artist 1, which is now a 3-hour course that will be out there for free. That will release with Houdini 20. It's using Houdini 20. I had the beta that I recorded with there. So that'll be very up to date. It's also using Karma. And I'm currently in the process of making Houdini for the new Artist 2 to follow that up. So as far as what's going on at CG Forge, that's the main thing that's going on. There's also going to be some big changes in color management. I have a coarse color management, and it's been less and less relevant as new features have been developed, but after Houdini 20, it's really out of date. So I'm also going to go back, fix that up. Fortunately, I don't have too many things in my old courses that need fixing. It's really just color management, for the most part, that needs a big overhaul. So after Houdini for the new Artist 2, I'm also going to fix that up, brush everything up, kind of tighten the bolts on some of my existing courses, and then just go from there. So anyway, if you're wondering what I've been up to here at CG Forge, that's what I've been doing. All right, let's dive back into the stuff here, the artwork. This is Helicopter Animation by Robert Klautz. Boss fight, submission, and breakdown. All right, let's check it out. Ooh, that's cool. That's a sweet shot. Rotor wash experiments, bike dust. Cool breakdown too. Nice little height field going on. Great camera angle too. Yeah, there's a lot of things going on here that's great. Let's take a look at the beginning here. One of the first things, it's really snappy when you have fast motion going slow. Right away, that makes things interesting and action-packed. It's a common technique you see in action movies all the time. That's happening here, and it totally makes sense. Shoo, like that. What's even cooler about it... Well, okay, so when you do that, I'm just kind of thinking here out loud. When you do that fast to slow, one thing that is cool about it is you don't really know what's going on for like a split second. And then when it goes slow-mo, you're like, oh, that's what's happening. Again, it's creating that narrative journey through the use of speed and through the use of camera movement. We actually were talking about camera movements on the other project with the blue backdrop, right? How it was a lack of focus going into focus. And I mentioned, hey, just swing that camera over a little bit. This is what I'm talking about. We literally just have a camera pan. We have some movement with the foreground right here, and that's juxtaposed against the movement of the midground element, which is the helicopter. So one of the reasons why this composition, this feels like there's a lot of depth to it, is because there's multiple layers that are moving in different directions. That's another really clever way to make a composition feel deep, like you can reach out into it, feel 3D. So I'll say that again. You want to make your scene feel like it goes back in the frame, have some elements that move in different directions. So you have the camera moving this way, you have the bike moving the other way, then you have the helicopter moving the other way, and just zigzag back and forth with your motion. And that's exactly what's happening here, which is why it feels so lightweight and suspended in zero gravity. It also creates that effect too. So yeah, really cool. And then as far as the smoke, I'm just taking a look at the smoke's movement here as well. There's different sections of smoke as well. And it's also a very clever way of adding depth. So let's say you had a smoke plume that was over the bike dude in the foreground, and then you had another smoke that was lightly right where the helicopter is, and then another smoke layer that was right behind it. And you had all those different smokes moving in slightly different directions, similarly but slightly different. That also is going to create this crazy effect where it feels like you can go back in the frame. Now, I will say this. One of my critiques for this actually is in the smoke movement itself. I don't think it's quite nailed yet. It's close. It's really good. But I just think what would really sell this is more interaction with the elements that we have right here. So you have your biker dude, right? He's sliding. He's drifting to the side. I think there's some smoke like right here, right? But I think this needs to be more prominent. And I think also it would be good to look at some references and see, okay, if he started drifting back here, maybe this should be more of a predominant feature. And maybe as well, we should have some smoke kicking up over here, have some more interaction where the wheel and the ground is. That would take it up a notch. The other thing that would take it up a notch is if we take a look at the smoke direction here, we have a helicopter that is really close to the ground and pushing a ton of air going downwards. So that air would go down, it would hit the ground, so you'd see that smoke going in that direction, and then it would fan out across the ground, and probably some of it it would just fan out across the ground. So I guess for the smoke that's mid-background, to have more of the direction fall in line with what the helicopter's doing would also add another level of detail. That's really cool. Cool, I guess this could be a gobo and a light, but cool God rays going through here with the dust. That adds a lot. Adds diagonal motion that's also juxtaposed to the helicopter. So you have this diagonal here, diagonal there, and you're getting that contrast in compositional motion. And that's also really effective. It creates tension when you have two diagonals going like that to each other. Anyway, these are all great things to recognize. It's a really cool project. I think that it was executed well. Great breakdown as well. So congrats, Robert. That's a really awesome project. All right. Let's see. How are we doing on time here? Oh, we're about 30 minutes in. I try to keep this around 45 minutes. So we're doing good. I'll try to speed it up a little bit here, though. This is by Rahul Gupta, Galactic Battle. This was everything rendered in Karma XPU, responsible for all aspects except mountains and spaceship, which were Megascans and Sketchfab. Sweet. Let's check it out. Nice. Some explosions, spaceships, really cool smoke, rocks falling down, things going crazy. Yeah, all in all, it's pretty cool. Got some lens flares. Yeah, this is first impression here. It's really cool. I like what's going on. It does feel heavily composited, and it's difficult to say if that's good or better in this case or not. Excuse me. Sometimes when you have CGI objects, you want to cover it up with lots of compositing. So what I mean by compositing is you want lots of glow, you want lens flares, you want things that go on top of a CGI model so that it doesn't seem as CGI. So sometimes it feels more realistic by adding in more glow and like filmic grain and all these different little tricks. Ironically, though, the more composited something is, the more it's like, oh yeah, that's like a fake looking thing. So ironically, sometimes over compositing things can make things feel less realistic, ironically, because it looks composited. On the other hand, if you don't do enough compositing, then things can feel really CGI, which is really fake. So it's a hard balance to get right, and I think Raul's doing a good balance right here in general. If it was me, I would just go a little bit less glowy on everything. I mean, I think we're getting to the point here in our explosions where this is just a glowy blob, and I think that this could do for some more detail. I mean, imagine this wasn't a glowy blob, and you could actually tell the shapes of the flames. It maybe has some sparks, fly off of the mountain here. I think, honestly, because this is a mountain, what would make these impacts feel even heavier is if it relied on more fast moving RBD, like rocks exploding. I think that would make it more action packed. And by having rocks explode, like let's say in front of this little thing right here, it would break up these bright areas. So with explosions, if you want to have them look more detailed, a lot of it honestly is in the RBD. It's having a piece followed by fire, followed by a piece, followed by fire. Again, it's just layers. That's, you guys, that's the key to everything here. It's layers. CGI, art, painting, whatever, just layer as much as possible. If you layered more rock debris in front of these guys, I think that would add darks and lights and add more contrast, and it would look more action-packed. Especially for this guy, or just had some rocks that were flying out from that, or I guess in the direction of where the bolts came from. Yeah, I mean, I love the fact that mega scans in Sketchfab were used here. Also, I think that just, makes a huge difference. Having some models, some textures. It's not just about models and textures either. It means that your lights have something to work with. And when your lights work with stuff, it just looks cooler. And that's totally happening right here. I do like how the debris were falling down like the mountain was crumbling in itself. That's a great layer. I would add more of that, and I would have more of the rock chunks following a specific direction on impact. But that's definitely looking really cool. And then, yeah, the camera movement's also really good. I like how there's camera bobbing happening with the shots. It's almost like you're in a spaceship and, somebody's firing those bolts and it's got quite a kick to it. So the camera's, shaking or you're getting hit. Whatever it is, it's interacting with the scene. And that's always a great thing. That's always makes something feel more immersive, like you're there. And it adds a lot to the quality as well. Anyway, yeah, there's that cool breakdown as well. Yeah, we'll just watch the rest of it here for a second. Yeah, I like the breakdown. I like the concept. Great job there, Raul. That was cool. This was made with the minimal solver. I helped him with some concepts. Oh, that's awesome. Cool. Yeah, I didn't know you worked on that there, Pizzola. But yeah, I think it's a cool looking project. It turned out great. All right, let's do one more here, you guys. Got this dandelion thing. Twice, apparently. Excuse me. Have this guy. And then we have the Halloween Muppets. Well, because this was supposed to be for October, I was out of town last week, so sorry about that. Normally I have this on the last Monday of the month, but this got pushed back a week because of that. But being that this was supposed to be around Halloween, I think this is entirely appropriate. Let's take a look here. This is done by Sasa Budimir. Made a little friend for my bat. Turns out he doesn't like him. Oh well, happy Halloween. Genius. I don't know what it is, but whenever you have Muppet stuff and CGI together, it just works so well. I just love the look that it has. I love the fact that it's also black and white, making a homage to the old horror films, right? Another way you can tell that an artwork is working is when you show it to somebody and they automatically connect with it. So you look at something and you laugh, or their face lights up, or it affects them in some way. That is a good sign. You want to show your artwork to somebody and it, have some kind of effect. This immediately had an effect on me. I was laughing at this. It was great. And that quality, by the way, is just... It's hard to get sometimes, but it's good to just recognize it when that happens. All right, so first of all, I love the detail on all this. We have big, medium, small detail, and that's why it feels realistic. Big detail, big shapes on this cloth. Medium detail, we have these little squiggle things on his ear, and we have, some specular breakup along here, and then tiny detail. It's a little hard to tell in this resolution, but, you can go look at this hair system, and it has so many areas where it goes dark and bright and dark and bright on a per pixel level. And that is tiny detail. You can see it up here on the rocks here as well. Big detail, silhouette, right? The silhouette is broken up nicely in big shapes. Medium detail, we have these tiny little warbles, like areas like this, that's medium detail. We have shapes like this dark discoloration, or like this dark discoloration, that's medium. Then tiny detail, look at the highlights. Look at how light is wrapping around things. That's where your tiny shows up. That's what's happening here, and that's why it looks realistic and cool. Compositionally, this is a really cool and creative composition as well. I like this for so many different reasons, but one thing I like about it is it's not your traditional composition. It's interesting. It's something I haven't really seen much of before. It starts with this whole frame being cut out into this shape right here, this rounded shape, which is really interesting. And we do actually have some areas hovering above black, so it was good on the color correction side too. We're actually still getting some detail, but again, if you squint at this, look at it from a distance, what have you, round shape. Then, to break up that round shape, we have another round shape, and it's almost like it's, again, trying to go back into the composition. It's swinging around. We have a diagonal shape, and then it swings towards us. Again, it's kind of reaching towards the viewer in that sense. We have little dappled bits of light, gobos on the light, I would suspect, or something creating a shadow. Maybe there's a little window up here. That adds a lot of realism. Highlights catching around here. Again, that creates this shape in the composition. And then, I guess here's the other thing too. What makes this feel organic and interesting is the fact that in the real world, you have these little things that, just kind of happen. Like, not everything looks planned, I guess is what I'm saying. It goes dark right here. Like, that would happen in the real world, and it doesn't look like planned. Even if it was, it doesn't look like it. Same with this vertical column of lights right here. It doesn't look planned. It looks natural, but it just makes things feel good. I guess on the other side, if things were perfectly controlled and planned and there was no chaos, you would just have this archway and you would just have this shape right here. And that would be way less interesting than just letting some things naturally happen in the scene. Okay, so anyway, that was a bit of a rant. But that's one of the reasons why this feels realistic, is because it just has some things that, are just allowed to happen chaotically. Okay, so yeah, texturing, shading, it's all really good. Love the rim light here. Again, that really emphasizes the character. Here's one thing as well compositionally that, again, could be intentional, could not be. But if you just pause right here, this bright area balances the composition. You have a bright rim and a bright right here. It's creating this balanced area of contrast. Attention over here, and it makes it balanced. And then that guy comes through. Love the motion blur and everything too, and he chases him away. Okay, well, anyway, I'm done talking about it. In terms of what can improve this, that's kind of challenging. It's pretty darn good. The other thing that's nice about it being stylized is that you can just say, oh yeah, it's stylized, and you're good. Sometimes. Yeah, so what would improve this? I would just like to see this happen a little bit longer. Maybe they interact. Maybe the bat tries to rebel, but then he runs away or something. And it happens real quick, but it would be fun to see him bonk on the head or something and then run away. But yeah, that's, I think, just more of it, I would say, is my constructive critique. That's That's the best constructive critique you can ask for, I suppose. Anyway, cool stuff, guys. Thank you for joining me. If you like this weekly wrangle, let me know about it. Be on the lookout for Houdini for the new artist releasing soon. It's seriously so much better than anything I've done before. And it's going to have exercises, and it's going to be fantastic for somebody who's brand new to CGI or just trying to switch over from a different software as well. Until next time, I hope you have a great day, and I will see you guys later. See ya.